And I bring this all up, my old long-ago history in Ottawa, and the snack park and Mr. Bricketts and Miss Patten, because there was one particular moment, or evening I suppose, that I most often continue to recall. My imagination claims it was the evening of Christmas Day, and I like to think of it that way. But it's obviously tempting to fudge such dates when the memory is for oneself alone. It may have just been somewhere along in the middle of winter. A snow was falling, and there was a great sense of beauty. Steam was billowing from the oven grate, and dark smoke rising up from the black barrel, and a rosy, heart-orange glow poking from its mouth. And the night was coming on, with blackness in the mountains, but it was not yet dark. A row of candles beamed in the front windows of the rooming house, and along the streets there was a great, old-fashioned merriness, with the gas lanterns just coming on. And it must have been a weekend night, for there were revellers and carolers and many children rushing about. Miss Patten and I were sitting quite close on the bench, and Mr. Bricketts was at the piano, and there was a scattering of skaters, who all at once left the ice and went to the sides for apple cider, and this left 2 children, a very young boy and girl of 3 or 4, both sputtering around the ice with apple cheeks and running noses, with their gloves pinned to their sleeves, both trying to convert the idea of skating into some kind of acceptable version of walking. But aside from their unsteadiness, these 2 were vastly interested in each other, and in some comical way were attempting to make passage to one another, with the goal that they might meet up. "The boy is Sam, and the girl is Julia," Miss Patten said. "He lives in the white apartment near the bakery, and she lives in the blue building near the sewing shop." And to our amusement, Julia stopped her roving, and was now softly spinning in the centre of the ice, watching as Sam veered desperately around her edges. "He's going round her like the bigger boys," I noted. And Miss Patten made a comment about Julia being in the centre, and Sam suddenly leapt upward on his skates and corrected his pathway, and the 2 children went into a slow collision together out on the ice, and took each other's hands to stop from falling, and Miss Patten moved closer to me, so that our shoulders came upon the other, as we shared this moment of witnessing as the 2 children, rosy-cheeked and sparkle-eyed, one from the white apartment near the bakery, one from the blue building near the sewing shop, closed their company, leaned forward together, and slowly rolled their lips toward the tiniest and sweetest small kiss, before then both crashing to the ice. It was another few moments before Miss Patten and I breathed, both of us so purely focused on the beautiful spectacle of the children's first kiss that we had come, both of us, into an extraordinary stillness. And then a few seconds later Miss Patten noted the small line that had formed at her concession, and she stood, and almost not facing me, as into the wind and quietly into the falling snow, she said, "We should skate later," and her hand pointed out toward the ice, and she appeared to be saying just a few additional things, before she went over to the brazier and the steaming oven, and began to dispense whatever food. And I'm not sure, but I believed at the time that she'd said, "You and I," and slowly, in my mind, as I recreated her departure, and the manner of her gesture, and the movement of her averted lips, I finally believed what she really said was, "We should skate later, you and I, just like that, like Sam and Julia." And I sat with that in my chest for a while, and watched her for signs of any escaping emotion as she served her customers at the stand. But the notion then arranged in my mind, based on nothing really, that some midnight rendezvous had been established. I went inside to neaten up, to shower and get dressed into whatever nicer clothing I had. And then later, I brought my skates out into the midnight darkness, and sat on the bench lacing them, waiting for Miss Patten, that we might go out onto the ice, and try for ourselves the fancy figure of an atomic particle. But either my mysterious sense of our impending togetherness was some dream of my own fashioning, or whether Miss Patten had come out earlier, I don't know. I did go out, however, and as though to let her know, if she was watching inside, that if she wished to be the girl, the nucleus, spinning slowly in the centre, that I would happily, and for her alone, establish a most excellent and sturdy edge. And I went fast around the rink in the darkness until a sweat came, and I felt a sudden strangeness and nausea, because knowing there was nothing I could do, no way to compel anything in the world into the figure of my want, and I slowed with a wave of fatigue, and went, finally, inside to sleep. Lay down my armor and send me to sleep, like a boat on the harbor, and a horse, cows, and sheep. There's a boy in the mountain, laying down in the stars, and the one with my heart lost her heart to the war. Will I listen more? Can I silently whisper to the wind and forget the sin? There's a boat on the river, sinking just like a bird, falling just like a stone in a sky like the river. There's a boy in the mountains, laying down in the dirt, and maybe he's dying, but it's her that he's hurt. Will I listen more? Can I silently whisper to the wind and forget the sin? As I skate down the river now, it is toward a makeshift destination that I think of as the snack park. It would seem outrageous to me if there was not a more prosaic explanation for the notion of the coincidence, but that there is, in a birchy stretch of the river, a collapsed old trailer home hidden under a pile of pine boughs, and inside this old house is a cheap, strong-man piano, largely shattered by time. A good half of the keys are dead, and the string bed is a mire of rust and leaves and sticks. Each year I return and find it much, much worse than the previous. But there are a few good keys, and I bring along a wrench, and will tune whatever of the unrusted strings that I can. Miss Patten, I am fairly sure, unless she has died, continues to live at and run the Hargrove boarding house. Over the course of the years I have stopped in to see her several times, and she once visited me here in Lemon, but only for a moment, and in town, as she was passing through. We talk about the snack park, and happily wander after Mr. Bricketts, and one of us, inevitably, will bring up Sam and Julia, and whether they ever married, and whether they remember their first kiss. And I have made it a custom, in my holiday note to her, to invite Miss Patten to come and join me here in this anonymous place in the woods, at my snack park, as I write. Dear Miss Patten, from the main street you bear off along the dirt road, with the sign that points to Market Mountain, which is where I live now, in a cabin by myself, and I am doing very well. But a mile along this road on the right, you will see a little place to pull off. Park here, and then head toward the large oak, and you will soon find a trail in the snow, which I have myself inscribed, which leads about a quarter-mile to my version of the snack park. You'll go up and over the hill, and it's a gentle climb, and then it descends, and it is safe, and you will not fall. Unfortunately, the snacks are cold, and Mr. Bricketts is nowhere to be found. But there is, unbelievably, a piano, and there is a patch of ice, and we could still, I'm sure, skate a bit, somewhat, in the pooling circle of the river. That is, of course, if you bring skates and have the inclination. But obviously, this is partly just a dream, and in my retirement I am happy to go out to the snack park in the positive strength of my own being, for that is enough. As I said, I am doing quite well, and just so you know, stamping out the footpath that leads from the old oak tree and over the hill was not done simply to ease your possible foot travel, but is just what exists, as I like to walk sometimes into town, to the bakery there for coffee after skating, and a roll. And thus I wish you my best wishes for the new year, and hope to see you soon, one of these years, either here or there, but certainly soon, and somewhere. My warm regards, Sherwin Sleeve.